Welcome District 55 candidates and welcome everybody to the meet and greet. Upon arrival, candidates drew numbers to determine the order in which candidate questions will be answered. Mrs. Patterson drew number 1, so she will begin, and then questions will continue after that with Mr. Ward starting with the next question and so on and so forth. Candidates will be given a time limit for each question. I will provide 30-second and 10-second warnings on questions with a time limit of 2 minutes or longer. I ask candidates to respect the time limits to enable as many constituent questions as possible. Candidates are requested to not interrupt or speak during another candidate's turn. You guys ready? All right, Lindsay, the first question will be for you. Please introduce yourself and state the top 3 issues your campaign will focus on. 1 minute.
My name is Lindsay Patterson, and the top 3 issues that one of them is the drug issues that are plaguing all of the communities within District 55. I am very strong with being pro-life, so that's a big thing for me is abortion regulation. I am also very strong in economic development. I think that's very important for our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Curtis Ward. I am a lifelong resident of the town of Brookville, born and raised here in Franklin County. Excited to represent you guys as the next state representative for this area to help move our area forward. Appreciate everyone taking the time tonight. Appreciate the 812 and the 765 for hosting the event. I think it's great for the constituents to get a chance to meet their candidates and to hear what we have in store for them. The biggest premise of my entire campaign focuses around moving this area forward by promoting economic development, by promoting broadband expansion, and protecting family farms.
Thank you. Dr. Welsh?
Thank you. Thank you for having us here tonight. This is really important that the voters get to learn about us so that we can better serve you. The 3 main tenets I've learned that I think needs to be stressed: schools, business, public health, and safety. As a physician, when I talk to folks, I talk about their medical problems, but then we talk about other things. We talk about regulations, we talk about problems in schools, we talk about trouble businesses are having. Public health and safety. As a surgeon, I can't take care of folks until the EMS gets them there. They can't get those folks to me until law enforcement secures the scene. So it's all tied together. And to try to help all those areas, I agree that broadband needs to be increased, strengthened, stability. I did classes at Ball State.
10 seconds.
Class at Ball State, I learned how an unstable internet can hamper things. And we can help schools, business, public health, and safety if we help with that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moten?
Thank you all very much for the opportunity. My name is John Moten, Batesville, Ripley County Republican Party Chairman, and Southeastern Indiana Regional Director for the Office of U.S. Senator Mike Braun. Top issues. My campaign's all about freedom and opportunity. Those things are the main core of where we're at as an area. We have to make sure that folks are empowered to make their own decisions and make sure that young people, through education, have outlets to pursue forward. I'll tell you, I'm pro-business. I want to make sure that parents have a window and tools to make sure they have influence on school curriculum. And I want to make sure that we're always opposed to unlawful mandates of any kind.
Thank you. Our next question is a follow-up question to your guys' campaign points. Each of you shared the focus of your campaign, but can you explain to constituents what tangible steps you will take to achieve these goals or challenges and changes in District 55? Curtis, that'll begin with you, 2 minutes.
Yes. I'm Don.
Let's stop that for just a second. We're going to start back over. You have 2 minutes.
So I'm the only one that's running for District 55 to serve an elected role. I understand that there's a lot that politicians or candidates will promise during their platform, and some of which they intend to do, a lot of which they really don't understand. As an elected official, I realize that there's a lot that we really would like to accomplish that we just simply cannot due to red tape, state guidelines, etc. The biggest thing for economic development is that we've been doing really, really well in Brookville and promoting economic development through a series of components, focusing on quality of place. I have a firm belief that jobs follow people. I believe that if you want to build an area to be the best economically, that you first focus on giving the people the best quality of life here. That quality of life means something different for everyone else. It means that high quality education. It means having high quality housing. It means having high quality jobs. So the tangible route to achieve better economic development incentives is to focus in on those three areas. Make the area great in terms of education. That means funding more in educators, not necessarily education. And then also focusing on bringing those jobs back here. I'm not talking solely manufacturing jobs. A lot of people simply focus on that and they lose sight of the most important thing, which is the small businesses that comprise
30
the area.
seconds.
Small businesses are the backbone of our community. They're the ones who donate to the school corporations. They're the ones that donate to the churches. They're the ones that's giving back and serving in boards and serving in elected positions. So focusing on those areas in terms of just that one economic development point would be the tangible route to make that happen.
Thank you. Dr. Welsh, would you like me to repeat the question? Are you okay?
Go ahead, please.
Each of you shared the focus of your campaign. Can you explain to constituents what tangible steps you will take to achieve these goals and/or changes in District 55? 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'll just go down the list. Schools. My father taught me that if you get a good education, you can do whatever you set your mind to. So we need to make sure that we give the tools to the schools and the parents and the students to do the best they can in the areas that they choose. Not everybody needs a college education. We need skilled craftsmen. We need to make sure our farmers get trained and get the training that they want. Businesses. We need to connect the businesses to the schools so the business can let the schools know, we're going to need more welders. We're going to need more folks doing computers. We're going to need insert whatever they're going to need so they can work together. First responders and law enforcement. We can't have a good place to live if we don't have folks who will protect us. Law enforcement. We can't have a good community if we don't have the folks who step up and our first responders. And how do you do that? You make sure that you have a pipeline going to those places. Now we're back to the schools. We connect with the schools, and I've actually already talked to a professor I work with at Ball State on how to get that pipeline better, connect into the schools so when they turn 18, they're ready to hit the ground running in law enforcement and first responders. It all ties together. We can go back to the broadband because if somebody gets hurt, how do you know where they are? You have better broadband. A business, so you have a business on Main Street, or you may have e-commerce. How can you make sure that works with good broadband?
30 seconds.
Schools. They have really good broadband in Columbus, Indiana, where I do my martial arts training, and some of the students there have good broadband, so they're already doing college-level courses, so when they are ready to go to college, they already have credits, and it's less expensive. Something all of us would like. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moden, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I'm good.
Okay, go ahead. 2 minutes.
So as we talked about before, the focus of my campaign is about freedom and opportunity, and those core values for me are always about being pro-life and protecting innocence from from conception to natural death, and also protecting the Second Amendment. Those are natural, inherent rights that we have because God created us in His image. I'll tell you from a focus of how we're going to get moving. I believe in the America First economy. It is important that we support business and agriculture and domestic energy. At this moment, when you go to the gas pump, it's what, $3.80, $3.90, $4 more? It's hard to make your bills when you can't even put fuel in your vehicle. Those policies matter. That means when we look at things like taxing at the state level, at the moment, most of us here are going to get a check back from the state, which is our money, right? They always pretend like it's their money, but it's really our money. But we need to review that. What does that look like? How many dollars do we really need to capture if the state is able to give back money regularly? We have to look at those things. I'll tell you too, from a business standpoint, I'm the only candidate in this race that's endorsed by the Indiana Manufacturers Association. Their members are throughout our district, throughout the entire state, and these folks are entrepreneurs, enterprisers, creating opportunity for folks of a variety of different skill sets. A lot of good paying jobs, good taxpayers, good faithful people that go to church, pay their taxes, raise their children, take care of their personal responsibilities. Also say too, in that focus, we talked about healthcare before, one of the big cripplers in terms of cost. We have to focus on healthcare pricing transparency at the State House. We have to give both the insured and the employers the ability to see what things cost, and folks should have the ability to check that. I know that's a tough thing. It's ambitious, but that's a part of making sure Indiana is in the best place it can be, especially when we're looking at a predatory federal government that's always coming after us.
Thank you. The next question. What experience do you have that qualifies you for this position, and what makes you the most qualified? Dr. Welsh, we'll begin with you. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Lindsay, I skipped right past you. I'm so sorry. Let me repeat that question first for you.
No, I'm good.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Okay. So in dealing with the drug situation that's plaguing our communities, I've sat down with several organizations and talked to them about what needs to be done. And a lot of the people that I talk to, they actually are recovering addicts. So they know firsthand what's needed to be done to help with this situation. One of the biggest things is through faith-based programs or health-based programs and things within the prisons. So one of the biggest things is helping people while they are not numb. So while they're in prison, you can come in while they're sober and talk to them about different things, trying to get them the help that they need. Most drug addictions come from a trauma. So if you can treat that trauma while they're sober, the success rate is much higher. As far as abortion goes, that's very difficult on a state level because we can't actually, until the federal government gives it back to the states, there's not a lot that we can do besides regulate it. So that's a huge thing for me to be a part of that regulation, to cut down on the amount of abortions that happen in Indiana. As far as economic development goes, I think that we have the ability to get a lot of grants to do some wonderful things within our communities, and that's great. But a lot of times when that money is out there, nobody has anything to actually, nothing written up, like, hey, let's do this with it. And I know that that has come up many, many times, that people have ideas and they're shot down, or they don't want to take the time to write anything up to actually get those grants. So I think that would be important for our economic development, as well as the broadband. That's very important as well.
Thank you. My apologies again.
That's okay.
Dr. Welsh, we'll start with you this time. What experience do you have that qualifies you for the position and makes you more qualified than the other candidates? 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. Since I've been a physician in this area, I have been working hard on advocacy at the state and national level. And I've had successes. The Healthy Indiana Plan that many people are familiar with, I helped mold when it was put forth by the governor. Stop the Bleed kits. Those are kids, so if there is a tragedy at a school, that they have some tools to stop the bleeding so more lives are saved. I had a hand in that. I'm currently on the Public Health Commission, where one of the things I've learned as a Ripley County health officer is there's a lot of resources that do not get out to us in the rural setting. And I learned to be the squeaky wheel, so we get the resources that people around here need. And I would continue to be that squeaky wheel. I have served as an advisor on healthcare areas to folks in the State House, Senate, and the representatives. I'm also to our congressmen and senators, and speak with them on a regular basis, most recently about a week ago. I've dealt with things at the AMA, trying to help with maternal health, trying to help with drug shortages and drug costs. I've worked with law enforcement. I've worked with first responders. I go to scenes if they have extra patient time. So but most importantly, I listen. As a physician, I was taught, listen to your patient. They will tell you the answer every time. It may not be the best or use the right medical jargon, but if you learn to listen, they will tell you the answer. I feel I can take that same skill as an elected official, because if I listen to voters, then I can do a better job for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Moden, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've said many times that My brother and I were raised on our family farm out in Fugate Township in Decatur County, spent our formative years in Batesville, went to Batesville schools, and graduated at Wabash College, and decided to come home, get engaged in the process in many different roles. 10 years ago, I had a unique opportunity to go to the State House as a legislative assistant for Indiana House Republicans. I was there for a session of 13 and a session of 14. Had a 3-member caseload and staffed both the Roads and Transportation Committee and at the time the Education Commission. After I left there, I spent some time back in campaigns, worked a lot with Mayor Mike Bettis down in Batesville, served on the staff of Congressman Luke Messer, and currently on the staff of the United States Senator Braun. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. Politics is rough and tough, and southeastern Indiana is home to us, right? It's great. We want to live here, we love it. But Indianapolis is not southeastern Indiana. And I'm the best qualified person to serve in this role because I know what I'm walking into day one. I know how the process works. I built up a 10-year book of relationships with folks in our area, and I'm ready. I know what no looks like in there. You got to push, push, push. And I'm telling you too, because some of you have called me over the years on casework or constituent issues. That's a huge part of the responsibility too, is being able to advocate for folks with the agencies, because the agencies can be a real pain, particularly agencies like IDEM and DNR. All those things need reform, but that starts with relationships, which I have, and I know we can be real fruitful.
Thank you. Mrs. Patterson, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
What experience do you have that qualifies you for this position or makes you most qualified out of the other candidates?
I think one of the biggest things that I have, I am a very, very hard worker. I was raised working from the time that I was 12 years old. I've had a steady job ever since then. So I'm a very hard worker. I have a lot of integrity, and I do not back down from anything that I believe in. Absolutely nothing. I am not a politician, and honestly, I think that that's what we need, because I'm really tired of all the political stuff that goes along with trying to make change, because everybody wants to be so politically correct, and I just don't care about being politically correct. So I think that that's a good quality. And I'm also a mom, and all of you moms out there know that that qualifies you to do just about anything. Amen. All right.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, the next question will be for you. What experience do you have that qualifies you for this position? That's the same question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know you guys are keeping a good eye on me, though. I appreciate that. What experience do you have that qualifies you for this position or makes you the most qualified candidate?
I do agree with Lindsay. Moms are the toughest people out there, so kudos to all the moms, especially my wife Katrina sitting here in the audience tonight. I do agree with John also. Politics is tough. And if John would have served in a local level, he would realize how extremely tough it is when you do that on a local level. You eat dinner with these people. You make a decision that has an impact on their lives, and you have to go to church with them. You have to sit at a school function with their kids. Those are the experiences that I want to take to the State House. I've lived in this community my entire life. I graduated, I went to college, I graduated at the University of Indianapolis with my degree in political science. I love community development, I love community leadership. I chose to come back to our community, to live here, to work here, and to give back here. I didn't choose to go to Indianapolis. I didn't choose to spend my time and experience using my degrees at the State House. I chose to come back here and give to our local community. And that's the most important thing that I'm going to take to the State House. I'm going to represent you and represent what the community needs to move forward properly. We're going to grow our area of rural Indiana. We're going to bring back our focus on that. We're not going to focus in on the donut counties of Marion County. We are going to network and to deliberate with the other legislators and senators up there to get this initiatives done, because I am only one person and there's 100 legislators that have an input as well, but those are the experiences that are
30
really
seconds.
vital to moving our area forward. You have to live here, you have to know this area, you have to know the community, you have to know the people, and you have to do that more than living in Indianapolis and working up there for a few years.
Thank you. Mr. Moten, you will begin the next question. As a state representative, you will be directly involved in the Senate bill process. And what bills in the 2022 General Assembly did you support, or the ones that weren't passed that you would have liked to have seen? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll respond to the question. Constitutional carry would be top priority for me. We talked about that before. I'm an AQ-rated candidate, which is the highest rating that a candidate can receive from the National Rifle Association as a non-incumbent candidate in a race. I'd also support the initiative to eliminate CRT from our classrooms. I think that's imperative. You cannot teach children to hate each other because of qualities that they cannot control. And you have to empower parents, and I think that was an important part. I mean, every one of those bills up there can be messy, as many of you know, and can be a compromise in that direction. I would say as well the personal income reduction was important, although it is on a 7-year scale, which is a little bit disappointing. But those are measures that I talked about before, where we need to focus on what are we doing, because I think size and scope of government is paramount. I certainly would support bills for further reform of agencies and what the state does on a day-to-day basis. It's important. May I respond to the, will we have an opportunity to respond to comments or questions?
It depends on our time limit.
Okay.
But we will have an open forum afterwards if
Okay.
anybody would like to be able to
Wonderful.
talk to candidates.
Wonderful. I would also say as well that anytime we have an opportunity to support life, I'll be supportive in that direction and making sure we focus there. You know, committee assignments, things like government and regulatory reform would be very interesting to me.
10
Serving on
seconds.
elections would be important to me because we need to make sure that those are free and fair and work properly. Make sure that locals have all the tools that they need to make sure that folks are confident that their vote counts every time they're in the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Patterson, you're next. As a state representative, you'll be directly involved in the Senate bill process. What bills passed in the 2022 General Assembly that you supported or did not support?
I too definitely support constitutional carry, and I also received the AQ rating from the NRA. And he's right; it is very difficult for a non-incumbent to do that. I also support House Bill 1673, which it deals with the fire departments. So giving them a tax-deferred income benefit for being a volunteer fire department or fireman. It expands the use of relief funds to include assistance and materials for recruitment and retention, because I know that that's an issue right now that some fire departments are seeing, that there's a decline in people that are wanting to get involved. So I know that I talked to Randy Fry, and he was talking about something that he worked on, and it was House Bill 1064. It's the Ivy Tech Scholarship Fund that they're giving to volunteer firefighters. So I think that's really important stuff, and those are the things that I definitely would have supported.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, you're next. As a state representative, you will be directly involved in the Senate bill process. What bills passed in the 2022 General Assembly that you supported or did not?
Thank you. Well, they took all the good ones, I think. No, the constitutional carry or the lawful carry, as I think it's more aptly termed, is one of the most important things that they were able to get passed this year. I'm supportive of the Second Amendment. I don't believe that the government has the right to infringe on your right to bear arms, so I think that the state did a good job in responding to that, as 24, 25 other states now, which is really fantastic. I was also supportive of the Senate bill regarding the farming that would restrict foreign entities from being able to acquire farm ground. I think that is a concern that I've heard voiced from several family farmers, that there are government entities outside of the United States where they are purchasing large amount of farm ground, and that's something that we should all be concerned on. So the Senate did a good job in responding to that one. House Bill 1134, it was alluded to previously. CRT, I think that every one of us would agree, and everyone in the audience would agree and should agree, that CRT should not have been involved and taught in schools. The 1134 was an attempt to solve a problem that created more problems for rural educators especially. So I would like the House and the Senate to reconsider that bill, but to amend it in a way that does not restrict rural educators from doing their job, does not encumber them with additional workload and restrictions, and would really support them rather than make them feel isolated and alienated. Legislators have to be careful when you're writing bills that you don't create more issues trying to solve a problem, and that's what I really hope to bring my experience in being an elected official, seeing the implications of laws that are passed down from the state, and making sure that the rest of the legislators are mindful of that.
Thank you. Dr. Welsh, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
First of all, I agree with my opponents about the concealed carry. We need to make sure that we protect the Second Amendment and do everything we can to protect each other. One of the things I think was important was actually the funding for FSSA. That funds the health care for many of our folks who can't afford it themselves, who maybe can't work. But I would have amended it to increase mental health coverage. I would have amended it to increase substance abuse disorder coverage. But I was happy about expanding the coverage for pregnancy. You mentioned the ladies earlier. Ladies who have had kids know you're not back to your baseline after a month or two. So expanding the coverage for a year, I think, is a good idea. Tax break was mentioned. I think that's a good idea, but I don't think they went far enough. I think those tax money is your money. And I think you deserve to have not put as much out there and make sure we're more cost effective. Which gets to what would I do in addition? I would try to get the agencies to be more user friendly. I think of Mitch Daniels, how he improved things in Bureau of Motor Vehicles when he was governor. We can do that. And as an elected official, I would try to be that ombudsman for voters in the district. Sometimes it's a matter of connecting people to the resources so that they can help. I actually did that a month ago. Somebody had trouble on State Road 46, and I contacted the folks in that and found out
30 seconds.
You need to take care of that. Women in sports. My sister played in sports in the 70s. She got to do that because of Title IX. I would hate to see efforts in other states roll over to here where the women are not allowed to compete against women. So there's a lot of things I would do. There's a lot of things I would do a little bit differently. I think there's a lot of good points that were brought forth. But the important thing is we have to listen to the constituents and then follow through with what your needs, wants, and desires are.
Thank you. Lindsay, we'll begin with you. How do you plan to involve constituents in the decision process for District 55? 1 minute, please.
Well, I've always said from the very beginning, I am very approachable. I would love for anybody that wants to sit down and have coffee to give me a call. I will make myself available to talk to anyone. I've already called several people and sat down and talked to them. I want to be available to anyone and everyone within District 55 because we know what we need in our communities. Indianapolis does not know what we need in our communities, or the 465 loop, whatever you want to call it. We know what we need in our communities, so I welcome my constituents to call me, to talk to me. I will listen, I will do whatever I can to support and to look into doing the things that they know needs to be done for our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Ward, same question for you. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision process for District 55?
Great question. So I want to take this a step further. I think all of us are going to give the same response. That we're going to listen to our constituents. It's what a good legislator should do. You represent the people, so you should listen to theirs. I think that there may be a misconception that just because someone voices a concern, that you should respond on that, and it's just simply impossible to do as a leader. And anyone who's been in an elected position or a position of leadership where they served on the board knows that to be true. Like I said, I want to take it a step further. I've been involved 5 years for the town of Brookville, and our legislators and our senators are great. They're supportive of us, but oftentimes it seems like they're here to celebrate successes. They're here to celebrate grand openings and ribbon cuttings, or to make their circulars once they wrap up the legislative year. I want to be more involved with that, or than that. I've already talked to several of the
10 seconds.
Mayors and everything like that, and creating a regional district where we can have a group think tank to really promote our area from a regional perspective, and not just a Franklin County or Brookville or Liberty and Union County perspective.
Thank you. Dr. Welsh?
Thank you for that great question. So I would do what I've been doing for 30 years as a physician, listen. But do it with a different take when it comes to voters. And I've actually been on a listening tour since fall, asking folks, let me know if you want me to come here and talk to you. Then I found people weren't asking, so I went to them. And if elected, I would set up a rotating town hall meeting throughout the district. And I would change the position each month. And so I would have scheduled and invited. So if you missed this week and you've got something going on a week and a half from now, and you want me to come before you, I will work my darndest to show up. And I'll try to make sure I get around to all the different districts. I've already been reaching out to all the folks in law enforcement, the folks in first responders, and to individual business owners. And I'm learning a lot, and I anticipate learning a lot more as your elected representative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moden?
Thank you very much. Well, it's my job every week to engage with constituents for United States Senator Mike Ron. And I'll continue that tradition as your state representative. I'll even do this. How about we do this? My number is 812-212-2520. If you would like to talk, I'd be glad to chat with you about it. I'll tell you this. It's important to reflect the opinions of folks in our territory. It's easy in Indianapolis to get swayed by the chandeliers and the legislative assistants and the lobbyists and the dinners and the other wonderment. And your job is not to be wondered by that. Your job is to reflect your folks' opinions, make the best judgment call you can when you're voting, and ultimately do the right thing for freedom and opportunity, which is what this is all about. I'm ready to go day one, folks. You've got my number. Call me anytime.
Thank you. Curtis, you'll begin the next question series. The expectations of public education and public educators have increased over the past 10 years, while the funding has decreased. What is your plan on education reform, specifically budgetary equity?
I think that's a really good question. So when they gave the school choice option, I think it created a disparity for rural educators and rural schools corporations. So there's a formula that's out there. It's funded in part by the state dollars, in part by the federal title dollars, or Title I or Title IX funds, etc., and then in part by the local tax that you guys pay. What I think needs to be done is to come up with a new formula that would allow rural schools the opportunity to receive more funds. So as it stands now, rural educators and rural school corporations, they don't score well when it comes to title funds because we don't have ESL. We're very non-diverse here in our parts of the state, so we receive less funding. That pot of money, follows and goes to the charter schools, which, I'm not going to disagree that it shouldn't, but in whole, that portion of that went to the charter schools has to come away from someplace else. And so when you have declining enrollment, a declining population in our areas, it's a further problematic issue for our school corporations that they're left to solve. Furthermore, when a school has a building that they could sell for and make some money back, they can't because they have to offer that up for $1. We're facing that right now with Franklin County and some of their buildings. They have no option to do anything with them other than let a charter school come in and take over. So I think there needs to be a focus on how do we differentiate between a urban school and a rural school. They do that with class 1, class 2, class 3 cities. They do that with other things. So I think that the state could do a better job in making sure that if you fall within a certain threshold that Union County or Franklin County
10
does,
seconds.
that you have a different type of funding model that makes it more equitable at that school corporation level, or the rural school corporation level.
Thank you. Dr. Welsh, I'll repeat the question. The expectations of public education and public educators have increased over the past 10 years, while the funding has decreased. What is your plan on educational reform, specifically budgetary equity?
Well, I like the comments you made about changing the formula. I think there's another way that we can do it in addition, is look at disparities in funding going especially to the rural schools. So whether it's in grants, whether it's connecting those schools with our higher levels of education, the state universities, for instance. I know when they were having trouble with schools in Muncie, Ball State stepped up and helped improve what they were doing there. That can be done with all of our state universities. You can adopt an area. First, I would sit down with our schools and say, okay, where are your gaps? What would help you? I don't want to be the person that, oh, you need A, B, and C. No. We want to make sure our kids get a good education. And what's the best way for that? Is it more in the career center, the vocational? Is it more getting people ready for a college degree if they want to? Is it connecting them for skilled trades? We need to find out what you want for your kids and what your kids want, and we need to address it. Then we need to figure out how do we pay for that, because as I mentioned earlier, my father and my mother stressed education is key. Get your education. They can take anything away from you, but they can't take away your education. And with your education, you can do anything. You can do anything you want to do. And I want to make sure we empower our parents, we empower our students so they can do that. And we need to make sure that they get the education so that they can do whatever they choose to do, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's first responders, whether it's going into the military. There's so much that we can do. We can connect with the libraries. One of the things that was kind of neat in Batesville is I go to the small Batesville library, but I can connect to all the libraries in the state and get a book sent to me if they don't have it on their shelves. We can do the same thing with schools. If you don't have a robust
10
physics,
seconds.
Maybe they do over in Lawrenceburg. Maybe we connect those students via Wi-Fi to that really good physics teacher at the high school level, or even get a college level physics teaching our high school kids.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bowden, would you like me to repeat the question?
I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. 2
Thank you very
minutes.
As a state, and as all of us as taxpayers, I mean, more than 50% of all of our dollars go to education of some sort, whether it's pre-K to 12 or it's post-high school training. You know, the funding formula was changed a number of years ago. I believe it was in 2015, in session 15. And that was done to try to create greater equity, because at that time, rural and suburban schools were funded sometimes at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a student, and urban schools were funded well in advance of $10,000 per student in terms of the state's contribution. Obviously, we wanted to create better equity, and I say we in the sense as Republicans were controlling the legislature at the time. I do think there are obviously gaps where we talk about opportunity, and I always believe that parents need to make the choices for where their children go to school and should always be empowered to choose that option, whatever it might be, whether that's a traditional public school, charter school, or parochial school, or private school. But I don't have any issue with looking into other ways to make sure that all of the rural schools, because this district is complicated, right? We have Connersville, we have Brookville, we have the rural schools throughout in terms of North Decatur and whatnot. We have Batesville schools. All of these are a little different in the funding formula. So I think as long as we take the time there to focus, I mean, we obviously want to focus as much dollars on funding students as much as we can, but making sure that we can find ways through the general fund. I think glad to have those conversations and see what's possible with Chairman Manning and other members of the Education Committee and House Majority in the Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I'm good. So I am a big proponent for school choice. I know not every child is going to do as well in one type of classroom versus another. My nephew, he joined the Marines and he always struggled in school, but my sister homeschooled him out of first grade, and when he took his ASVAB, they were just off the charts. So I think if he would have stayed in the public school system, he may not have been as successful. So I think school choice is very important, and that is something that I support. Unfortunately, in this area, we're having some of our schools closed, but we also have a $5 million debt for some projects that we chose to do. So for me, I look at tax spending, just be more, I think, better spending. You didn't need some of those projects. So for me, I think just cutting back on things like that would be important in smaller communities like this.
Thank you. And we just have time for one more question. Dr. Welsh, you will begin in closing. 60 seconds just to give us your final thoughts and statements you'd like to share.
Thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you for listening and supporting folks who decide to step up and be that person in the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt would say. I would ask for your consideration and for your vote on May 3rd, or sooner if you want to vote early. I would work for you. I would work for helping our schools and our businesses, farmers, first responders, law enforcement. I want to make sure that people have the community that they want, whether it's bringing more jobs in, make sure it's not jobs that I want, but what the community wants. I always think of the possibilities. I always think of not problems, but opportunities. And every area that I've worked on, whether it's taking care of patients, whether it's working in the Joint Commission to reduce regulations, whether it's working with elected officials or agencies, I've always prided myself on trying to make things better and listening to folks and making things better than where I got it. And I would ask for your support in this election. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moten, same question.
Thank you. Thank you all very much again for coming tonight. Thank you all for hosting this opportunity. It's a great time to give folks an opportunity to see what we're all about and our campaigns and how we'll serve as members. Folks, Southeastern Indiana is my home. My mother and dad came back here in 1989 and bought our family farm. And my parents have since been divorced for a number of years, but this is home. That farm and Batesville are obviously home in this entire region. I've spent years traveling around this territory, getting to know people, falling in love, making sure that we have those relationships. My experiences are different, there's no doubt, but my experiences uniquely qualify me to serve in this role. I'm pro-life.
10 seconds.
I'm pro-gun. I believe in freedom and opportunity. I'm ready to support the America First economy. I oppose unlawful mandates, and I'm ready to serve day one, and I appreciate your support on May the 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Patterson?
So just so everyone knows, and I made this clear, I'm not always going to have all the answers, but my promise is to always seek them and to listen and try to figure out whatever I don't know. My promise to Southeast Indiana is not to make promises that I cannot keep, and to keep the promises that I do make. I will be there as your voice. I will always listen to your concerns. I will stand firm for all of Southeast Indiana, and I will treat everyone in District 55 with the respect that they deserve. That is my promise. I hope that when you get out on May 3rd that you'll think about me and put in a vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ward?
Thanks, Cassie. Thanks for everybody tonight for hosting. Appreciate everybody coming into the audience. So this election is extremely important for our area. We need a candidate in Indianapolis that has experience to move our community forward, and I'm that candidate. I'm running for office for 3 reasons, and their names is Maddox, Sophia, and Mila. I'm a parent. I believe that we have a calling as community leaders to leave our community a better place, and that's exactly what I want to do. I want my community to be better for when my kids graduate, that they have jobs here, that they don't have to move away. that they have high-quality housing here, that they don't have to choose to move in another community where there's better housing available. I'm going to fight like I have for Brookville, even though there may be adversity to Indianapolis, just like there was here at the local level. I'm going to fight tenaciously, like I have, to move our community forward. So on May 3rd, I would appreciate your guys' vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to our District 55 candidates. You may be seated. Next, we will welcome Franklin County Commissioner candidates from District